back for the second episode of the 12 Letters Podcast, an 18 and up podcast discussing things of the 12 letters, ABDL, BDSM, and LGBT. I was kind of going back and forth on what to do for the next topic, and came down on this one. I think this is kind of a fairly ubiquitous thing in ABDL, or at least I wouldn't say it's absolutely universal, but it's extremely common. I was filming my review today for Crinkles. As soon as I actually put the diaper on, like against my skin, put it on, immediately the physical sensation reminded me of when I was younger, and most of us have done this, stealing a diaper. For me, it was at my grandma's house and my younger cousins, and then stuffing it down my underwear. But the feel of that, and that's how those crinkles feel. The plastic is just right. Just everything about that situation, the crinkly noise is just dead on. And I got overwhelmed with that nostalgic feeling, and it really took me back to that headspace when I was young and doing that and afraid of being caught and having that rush and getting hot and blushy and embarrassed. That fear, that embarrassment that you cause yourself to feel because of the fear of getting caught. So it definitely took me back to that, and I felt all blushy and weird, and it made it hard for me to do anything because I was just kind of fighting to stay in my normal headspace and not slip into little space. Those are the types of things and feelings that this, any kind of kink really boils down to is, we have these feelings that we have associated with activities or certain physical sensations or situations. For me, I definitely have a praise kink. Being praised by the right kind of woman just sets me off. And it could be anything. It's just silly little, anything. It inspires that blushy, it's not quite the praise one's not quite an embarrassment, but it's definitely fulfills this need in me. Definitely brought back a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, not necessarily specific memories, but the memory of how I felt and having known for so long. Because I was young, I knew I wanted to wear diapers. I did not know why. I have my, speculations these days. It really took me there emotionally. And I let my mind wander a little bit, and it's if I had a mommy type person here right now to and I actually started building a scene in my head of this is a great way, for this scene to go down. Here's a scene that could be made to kind of replay and rewrite, so to speak, the memory. Make kind of a alternate history of, I've got these diapers stuffed down my underwear, and, the female caregiver role, whatever, catches me. But instead of berating me and humiliating me and being mean to me, what actually happened, taking it and twisting it into something nice, and like, oh, oh, do you feel like you need to wear diapers? Okay, well, let's put this diaper. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So my brain went there, and the people just listening can't see me fanning myself with my hand. Only the video people are getting to see that, which it's not up anywhere as a video yet, but it will be. It'll be bonus content, hopefully sooner rather than later. And that's really, I think, what everybody should, to a certain extent, be doing is like, exploring your mind and exploring your thoughts. If you have a partner to do things with, great. You know, um, but you also need to be able to explore your own mind and your own feelings and emotions, and really get a good handle on that to be able to explain to a partner what exactly you're going for, what you're trying to achieve um, in that moment. This is the goal of this interaction, is to achieve this feeling. And if you don't know where you're trying to get to, how is somebody that isn't you supposed to know? You got to be able to communicate, and you have to know what it is you're looking for to be able to communicate it. So I'm a big science nerd for anybody that's kind of talked with me enough. You know that I'm a big nerd. I love science stuff, but that's something that science, doing thought experiments. And yeah, it's psychology, so it's a soft science, I guess. But you know, it's it's something that I think people should be doing. Is like really put yourself in that moment. When you hear about one of these ABDL tropes, stop and consider how you would feel in that moment. Not just like, how do I think I would feel? Actually, go into your mind, close your eyes, daydream about it, and see how it makes you feel. Especially if some thought, like you see somebody on social media express an idea or something that kind of gives you a little tickle in the brain. Take that thought and explore it. There's some reason you feel that way. I think there's definitely something for me in that, or in my experience. So like, my takeaway is that yes, I don't have that shame kink. I am actually kind of adverse to shame and embarrassment, humiliation, and degradation. I think a lot of that has to do with my childhood. I know that some people, I kind of have a hypothesis of extremes, is that when you get into some of these more specific kinks like ABDL and BDSM and things like that, I think there's an extreme case to be made for people that come from extremes, and maybe not necessarily the majority of the people. I'm sure it's some kind of bell curve, but I think that like, take for example spanking. I've heard a lot of women that like to get spanked, and there's guys out there that like to get spanked too. I'm not. I'm just. I haven't talked to or been exposed to a lot of guys that enjoy spanking. They don't, it's something we don't talk about because we're men, and that's submissive, and that's just not something we publicly discuss because it's a threat to our masculinity. Toxic masculinity wins again. No, so the women I've heard talk about enjoy, that they enjoy being spanked. They really, really like it, is because they were either spanked a lot as a kid or not at all. So I think there's definitely something there. Well, I think there's an argument to be made for looking into it. How's that? And I think some of that is true for ABDL too. I think a lot of people in ABDL either had really crappy childhoods or they had really amazing childhoods. So half of us, or not half, but a portion of us, well, all of us are trying to relive our childhoods for whatever reason. I think part of us are trying to rebuild, restructure after being damaged, and I think another group is, just wanting to relive it and hold on to it and cherish it. For some reason they connect with it. So yeah, I definitely think there's something to be said for that, and I think that's why. It's probably why I criticized Dylan Lewis's book and his hypothesis so much, is because he's trying to paint with a very broad brush and say that all ABDLs have this aspect, and I don't think that's true. But there's a specific type of identity disorder, some specific type of dissociative disorder. I can't remember exactly what it is. That in reading the description, I felt like it rang true for me. But having talked with other people and talked with people extensively, I don't think that that's true for everyone. I do kind of feel like personally that my little self, it's not quite a fully separate personality, but in some ways it kind of is. So I guess the easy way to explain this for me would be to talk about non-ABDL kinky me. So for those that have heard, or have interacted with me or whatever, I know that I call myself an a la carte kinkster, because I like a little bit of everything. As long as it's weird, I got my hard nose like anybody, but as long as it's weird and it's fun, I'm probably going to be down to at least try it. So I recently started playing with somebody, and it's the funniest story, because you just go to Munches and meet people because you never know what's going to happen, and that's how this happened. But we were both looked at each other and said, "Oh, they're a very good-looking person," Then we got to know each other, and we're like, "Oh, you're really cool," And it's like, it's just too bad that you're into that and I'm into this, and we both looked at each other and kind of we're like, well, that's not all I'm into. I don't have to have my kink all the time. I like just about anything. Like, really? You too? Yeah, you too? Oh, well, maybe we should have some fun. And we did. And it was awesome. And discussing things with her, it was, I was like, hey, here's my hard nose for big me. I was like, and I don't know if you want to interact with little me at all, but if you do, here's the rules for little me, because they're totally different. Big me will be a little bit of a brat, will be sassy, will try to get punished. Even though I'm not a masochist, I just have a high tolerance for pain. And, if somebody is a sadist, well then, I'm going to make it fun for them by giving them a reason to punish me. So little me would be appalled by that behavior. Little me is a very good and emotionally sensitive little guy, and would legit cry if he got in trouble for even just that, just being spoken to, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Oh yeah, little me wouldn't be able to take that. So, yeah, that's kind of what I mean by like it's me. It's just this alternate version of me that it's a different experience for me. And if you're interacting with me, you're not gonna get this that you're getting now. This is big me. Little me is you know shy and playful and positive and sensitive and just wants to make a female caregiver. We'll just go with that because it doesn't have to be mommy, just a female in that type of role. I just want to make them happy and have them praise me and, all that. So, yeah, and it's only through, actually thinking through these things and working through these ideas and asking myself, well, how does this idea make me feel? And then going into my head and letting it play out and um, just seeing where it takes me. And I think I think it's a very healthy thing to do in general, as long as you're not dwelling on things, as long as you're not getting stuck in there and giving into negative behaviors of any kind that could possibly go along with that. Um, like these people that get into a cycle, it's like, oh, I don't want to think about having a mommy because if I do, then I'm going to want it. And then it's just going to make me miserable to keep going on without one. It's like, that's, that's you dwelling on it. That's the problem. That's what's causing that is you dwelling on it. I think it's really unfortunate that some people get so caught up in that too that they behave inappropriately in online interactions, and that really still blows my mind. That things like that happen. I mean, I know for a fact they happen. It's just, why is that happening? That shouldn't be happening. How much of this are you making your identity, or like how big of a percentage of your personality and your identity is wrapped up in this? Because for me, it's who I am through and through. But my self esteem and my self love and, all these things, they're not wrapped up in this. This doesn't define who I am. This is just a piece of who I am. It's not even, it doesn't even define my kinkiness. It's just another aspect of it. It's my main aspect. It's the first kink that I knew about that like or that I was aware of, even though I wasn't aware that it was a kink because I was far too young. Um, I just knew it made me feel funny. That's all I knew then. Um, but yeah, I mean, it, it's still not that big of a part of my identity. And even doing this and doing YouTube and doing the podcast and doing social media and trying to be an advocate and an ally to a certain extent and talk about these things a little more publicly. I don't know. I guess what I really would like to see in the end is just like kinky people not having to be afraid of being kinky, which is why I do what I do. I would like to see our society move to a point where, you know, you're not out there making it other people's business, but if they just happen to find out, they're just going to shrug and go, ah, oh, that's cool. And just like, instead of the vitriolic stuff that does get said, about any kind of kink. And so I guess we'll end on this idea. And it's this misunderstanding from the outside world. I saw a meme on Facebook a long time ago from one of my vanilla friends who doesn't uh, for those of you listening, I'm doing air quotes. Um, it's a quote unquote, um, doesn't buy into identities. So they shared a meme on Facebook that was, a trans person. It says, I identify as a woman. A pony player is, I identify as a pony. An ABDL person, I identify as a baby. I identify as this. It's, and it's like, no, 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 no. The trans person is a completely separate issue. Trans people identifying with a specific gender, that's a whole thing. Um, because all of us do that regardless. I identify with my male gender. I'm comfortable in it. I, I've never questioned my gender, or my gender expression. So, but identify as a baby. I don't identify as a baby. I don't think any ABDL person actually would ever actually say that. Because we have so many, like, there's like safe, sane, and consensual is such a huge part of it that, like, to, like, just be like, I identify as this. It's like, no, we know we're adults. We don't identify as babies. We have adult decisions that we have to make in practicing ABDL, with safe, sane, and consensual. We have to, we still have to do that stuff too. So we have to be actual adults. And I think a lot of us talk about things like that as kind of a playful, fun way of interacting with other ABDL people. We joke around about, oh, you're so baby, you're so baby. I think that's kind of more of an inside thing. I don't think anybody. I think it's silly if there are. And there probably is, like, some tiny fraction of people that probably have some other kind of issues going on, um, like actual issues, because ABDL is not an issue. Somebody that actually has some type of issues might say that they identify as a baby. Or maybe if they just misunderstand what ABDL is, or they've never explored these thoughts really, or they don't know that the ABDL subculture exists. They might feel that way, but I think that would be and this is going to sound like a hot take, but I think that would be a misinterpretation of their feelings. I know, I'm talking, I'm invalidating somebody else's experience. I would, or it sounds like it anyway. Um, but I honestly don't think. I think most ABDL people are normal, responsible adults that just happen to like diapers too. Um, so I think that whole misunderstanding from the other side is, I identify as a baby. No, I don't. I have part of my personality that is childlike, and I embrace it in ways that are just different from the way other people do it. Like, everybody regresses a little bit somehow. Like, all adults have somewhat of a playful side, whether they're playing video games or interacting with, nieces and nephews, or their kids if they're parents, to pretend with kids and stuff, or to play video games and recapture your teen years of playing video games, and that's how you unwind. It's just, we happen to do it in a different way that's highly, highly misunderstood. And I don't care in the end if people actually fully understand it. What I want to see is just, like, understanding what it isn't and why it isn't that, and you know end the vitriol. Like, stop, you know um, stop seeing us as this dangerous thing, because we're not. It's just sad that conversation even needs to happen. you know like, I don't want to be able to, like, walk up to every single person and, like, wear a badge or a pin or something, or have a tattoo that's completely visible and put it in everybody's face that I'm ABDL. That's not what I want. Um, I just want it to be that, people at least just understand that no, this isn't something I identify as. I'm a full-grown man. I'm 43 years old. I'm a parent. I have a job. I work full-time. I live alone when my daughter's not here. I take care of my home. I do dishes. I do laundry. I do adult stuff. This is actually a very small amount of my life, but it's an important part of my life. And this this cartoon idea, this caricature that exists of ABDLs, that really is not it. It really isn't what it is. That's not how these things work. If people could just understand that and just, be like, oh, that's it? Well, okay. And then, like, the next time they find out somebody else is kinky in some way, whether they find out on accident or they get told, or, they're out on a date with somebody and, it's like their third date and their fourth date, whatever. And they're like, hey, by the way, if we're going to go forward with this, here's this thing about me. And it not turn into a complete shit show of, oh my God, you disgusting freak, don't ever talk to me again. When the conversation could just simply be, oh, okay, well, I I know about that, and I know deep down inside that's not for me. So good luck to you, and we'll see you. Have a nice life. That's all we really want. I don't want to be able to walk down the street in a t-shirt and a diaper and just be like, hey, everybody, look at me. I'm not a freak show. I'm not here to make my life Jerry Springer. I'm not here to make your life Jerry Springer. I just don't want to live in fear. I don't want any other kinky people of any kind to live in fear, And I don't think that that's too much to ask. And that's, kind of what this whole 12 letters is all about. 12 Letters Podcast, that's where the name comes from. I don't think that people who fall under any or all of those 12 letters should have to be afraid of just being themselves. And especially if, like kinky stuff that is being kept, under wraps, like, but it's, and we're not, like kinky people who are not throwing things in people's faces, and not, trumpeting it, hey, look at me, and shock and all, shock value and all that jazz. We shouldn't have to be afraid. We shouldn't have to worry about, somebody finding this out and reporting us to CPS because they don't understand what this is and what it isn't. I don't live in fear of it, but it is always in the back of my mind that could happen. I think I have enough allies that I would be all right in the end. There's at least the potential that I would still have to like deal with that situation, that I would actually have to go through that and prove, what I'm saying about myself. And that kind of sucks. That really, really sucks. And I think we can do better as a society. And so we'll end it on that. And this message to the ABDLers and Kinksters and everybody under the 12 letters, one way or another. Let's try to also be kind and compassionate towards the vanillas. They deserve our empathy as well, because they're boring. So that's it for me on this one. Y'all take it easy out there and stay patted.